Summer had just begun, and for my girlfriend Jessica and I, it only meant one thing. The Midtown Skate Park was open. It's the place we met just 3 years ago, and it's the place we come to visit annually to celebrate our anniversary and our love for skateboarding. The day started out with the sun shining down brightly as a light breeze French kissed the city, which only meant the perfect day to skate. Due to concerts, football games, and private parties, skate park Horrorland is usually too occupied for us skateboarders to enjoy. However, come summertime, it becomes our time to take over the park and just enjoy every inch of the park. Jessica stood by my side as we entered into the already jam-packed park. I spotted a group of our friends with skateboards in hand, ready to have a good old time. Jessica's face glowed with excitement like it always does when we're here. Little time was wasted before she dropped her skateboard down to the floor and took off in a hurry. I struggled briefly to catch up to her, but eventually I did moments later. After a couple of minutes of doing a few tricks, enjoying several ramps, we caught up to our friends who stood in the middle of the park chilling. I dapped up all my friends as Jessica greeted her best friend Cynthia with a bear hug. They hadn't seen each other in a month, given that Cynthia spent the last few months out of the country. They immediately began talking about her trip as I began talking to my friends. "How's everything going, fellas?" I said, as they all didn't seem as enthusiastic as I clearly am at this moment. "Come on, guys. Skate Park Horrorland is back open. Y'all should be just as excited as I am," I added. They struggled to smile. They could barely look me in the eyes as I attempted to figure out just what was wrong with them. "Yo, John, they're going to close down the park for good at 5 p.m. today," says Jason with a blank grin locked onto his face. I appeared puzzled. I tripped and fell over my own words as I attempted to construct a basic sentence. "Stop joking," I said, scoffing at his words. However, no one burst out laughing as I realized what Jason was telling me was accurate. Then suddenly, I could hear the sound of loud horns growing in the distance. A fat, chubby, bald man with furry arms began urging everyone to leave the park at once. This must be a terrible dream, I thought for a second. However, it's not. This rather large man hopped from off of the cab of the pickup truck down onto the floor near the entrance of the park. How he then caused the largest earthquake ever to take place at that very moment, I'll never understand. I shook my head as I'm being defiant as usual, as the crowd of my fellow skateboarders all stood their grounds, refusing to obey this gigantic man's order. He gradually entered into the park, running out of breath with every step he took, as his forehead rained down with sweat onto his face. "I want everybody out of my park immediately," he shouted as several construction workers, all holding shovels, marched up alongside of him. I didn't know whether this was his way of threatening us or he wanted to tear down this park earlier than everyone was told. "We're not going anywhere," my girlfriend Jessica shouted out loud, causing dozens of other skateboarders to agree with her. The beastly-looking man laughed at her words as he ordered his construction crew to tear down every inch of this park. "You annoying skateboarders need to grab your skateboards and exit the park immediately," he made clear. "Or else what?" someone shouted off in the distance. The giant bowling ball-sized looking man with hairy arms roared in anger. "Or else you'll all regret not obeying my orders," he spoke angrily. Jessica marched her way over to him as I immediately followed her, and so did our friends. "We're not going anywhere," Jessica stated. She's a very passionate person when it comes to her and her beliefs, and she truly loves and believes in this park. Skateboarding was her way to mentally escape from the harsh realities of which she's faced over the years. This is more than a skate park to her. This is her therapy, just like so many others. So tearing this park down is just something that won't ever happen. The fat slob of a man with ketchup stains staining his shirt just ordered his men to demolish the place. Destroy everything and everyone in here, he shouted aloud before a cop siren sounded off, preventing his men with shovels from continuing to head over in our direction as we all grabbed a hold of our skateboards to battle his men. Sure, they may be stronger and more intimidating than us. However, we outnumber them all 4-1. We're not backing down to them, and neither are they backing down to us. It's as though us skateboarders are in an army, and we were already anticipating a war because we're all together united as one. The large man laughed loudly, finding amusement in our mere presence. He could see the seriousness on all of our faces. If he had any sense, he would back down and take his crew with him. But clearly, common sense seems to be what he's lacking, and that's going to cause him great bodily harm. I took a glimpse at my girlfriend, Jessica. She's boiling with rage, and if she's unhappy, so am I. We're getting closer to the construction workers with shovels in their hands. They don't seem to mind battling us as they grab firmer grips on their shovels with evil scowls painted on their faces. Second after second is leading us to getting closer and closer to them. Blood was shed, and this will fall down on the hands of the grotesque man. Now, no more than a few feet separate us from them as I watch the sinister grin make its way onto that man's face. Then suddenly, the police sirens grew louder and rapidly increased in volume as police vehicles became visible all around the skateboard park. I felt relieved. I could breathe again. I knew we stood no chance against these prison-looking construction workers. Finally, a voice of reason has arrived, and I know they'll put this gargantuan man in his place. Officer, we need your help, Jessica shouted aloud in angst as all of the other skateboarders agreed. Officer Smith exited from his vehicle with his belly hanging over his waist. He hushed the crowd of skateboarders almost immediately once he exited from out of his vehicle. Several other officers arrived following his lead. Jessica, filled with anxiety, took several steps in his direction, causing him to raise his hand up like a stop sign. Now you wait right there, missy, he shouted aloud as he walked up to the fat slob of a man. Mr. Wilmot, how are you doing this lovely day? Says Officer Smith to that fat bastard. Mr. Wilmot forced a smile onto his face as he responded. Not so good, thanks to these little miscreants trying to prevent my men from tearing down this park. Officer Smith shook his head. Sir, that's a problem, he replied, causing us to agree with his words. That's a problem you shouldn't ever face. Our smiles vanished with those words flowing from out of Officer Smith's mouth. We're all dumbfounded. The friendliest cop in the city who always sides with us just isn't at this time. Officer Smith and Mr. Wilmot spoke briefly, whispering to one another. And then suddenly, Officer Smith ordered us to leave the park at once or get arrested, baffling us all. Several other officers threatened to mace us if we didn't comply to the order, which we were all forced to leave the park within minutes, as Mr. Wilmot's men wasted no time before they all began demolishing the skateboard park. Jessica was livid, and believe me, I heard about it during the entire drive until I dropped her home. She spoke about not only getting revenge on Mr. Wilmot, but also Officer Smith as well. I didn't try to calm her down, I just let her vent for nearly a half hour until I dropped her off. She's no criminal. She's not a heartless person. So I know all the things she said she was going to do to them, she would never do. I made it home about 20 minutes after I dropped her home, and I didn't bother to eat a thing. I just headed upstairs to my bedroom, and then I threw myself on my bed as I fell asleep in a hurry. I don't even want to think about this day. Hours must have traveled by before my bedroom light turned on, startling me, causing me to spring up out of my bed as I spotted Jessica sitting on my computer chair just across from my bed with blood stains on her hands. My jaw dropped, my heart raced, and my head began spinning as I attempted to wake myself up from what I hoped was a bad dream, but it wasn't. Jessica, what happened? Are you all right? I asked with great concern as I noticed blood stains covering her shirt and neck as well. Tears drizzled from her eyes as she began rocking back and forth in her chair. Jessica, talk to me, I said concernedly. She began shaking her head as more tears dangled from out of her eyes. Remember you told me that no matter what, you'll always love me, no matter what, she spoke. I nodded my head gradually, but with fright. Jessica, what happened to you? I asked, knowing that more than likely she must have done something terribly wrong. The skateboard park isn't going to be closed anymore, she said softly. I appeared puzzled by her words. What does that mean? I asked. I need to get to the bottom of all of this. Why are you covered in blood? I continued. She examined herself momentarily before returning her focus back onto me. You told me that no matter what happens, you'll always love me and you'll do anything for me. Remember that, John? She stated. So I need you to take this from me and tell the cops that it was you who killed Mr. Wilmot and it was you who killed Officer Smith. Her words sent chills up my spine and panic through my entire body as I froze like a statue. I watched as she stood up, wiping off the fingerprints from the gun as she walked over to me and placed it right into my hands. I called the cops already, she added. I told them how enraged you were to hear the news about the skateboard park and how you vowed to get your revenge. I told the 911 operator that I can't believe you killed them. I told the operator that you even threatened to kill me, she says calmly. The sound of police sirens sounded as I instantly heard officers bang down my front door and rushed into my home with their guns drawn. I can't believe you did this to me, I said as I'm still trying to make sense of this whole situation. I heard the sounds of officers yelling, "Put the gun down," as Jessica screamed, "John, please don't shoot me." Perhaps it was her words, or maybe the fact that a gun rested in my hands, which caused every officer that rushed into my room to unload their guns at me.